I'll entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to seal the minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion to seal the minutes and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Under discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor to adjourn? We are adjourned. You can give me 2 minutes so I can have some cashews. I'm going to have my peanuts for dinner. Can I have your pen, please? Thank you. Thank you to the audience for allowing some patience and allowing me to have some cashews because, going from work to council is always fun for the night. At least I got to have some dinner. With that, I would like to call the February meeting of the Cranston City Council to order. Assistant Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Present.
Present. Present. Everyone can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any acknowledgments or commendations on tonight? Hang on, I'm still trying to get my laptop open. Any presentations? I think we just had the one resolution for the sorry, I'm trying to boot up my iPad. It seems to be technology night. The internet is not being cooperative this evening. Under public hearings, limited to docket matters. So public hearings are now open, so anything on the docket tonight anyone would like to speak at, now would be the time. Good evening, Mr. Doe. Name and address for the record. Thank you, Mr. Doe. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on any docketed matters? Seeing none, that portion of the meeting is now closed.
I'm sorry. Wenley Ferguson, 48 Bartlett Ave in Cranston. I'm here tonight to request that the City Council pass a resolution in support of the Ocean State Climate Adaptation and Resilience Bill. It's House Bill 7165 and Senate Bill 2194. Last year, Save the Bay greatly appreciates the City Council's support of this resolution. We are going back to the legislature again this year to try to pass a funding source for municipalities that would be an ongoing annual funding source for climate resiliency projects. Those could include coastal projects, but in a city like Cranston, the majority of the resiliency projects would be along your rivers and streams like the Patuxent, the Pecasset, and the Meshanticut Brook area. So we're currently working with the city on a couple projects that are ideal poster child resiliency projects, removing infrastructure at road ends that end along the Patuxent River, some of the homes along Perkins Ave that were taken down after the 2010 floods. That infrastructure still exists. It still causes stormwater runoff and erosion into the Patuxent River. It's still a liability for the city. Removing that infrastructure is the type of project that this funding source would fund. So we strongly encourage the City Council again to support this resolution, and if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on any matter this evening? Seeing none, that portion of the meeting is now closed. Resolutions. Resolution in support of legislation to establish Ocean State Climate Adoption and Resilience Fund. Senate Bill 2194 and House Bill 7165, sponsored by Council President Farina, Councilmember Stikos, McCauley, and Donegan. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second under discussion. Councilmember Paplowskis.
Thank you, Council President. I will be in support of this evening, and I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
I believe last year we ended up having every member of the council sponsor it, and that's why it ended up coming back before us tonight, because it was something we all felt was important. Councilman Brady?
Same exact thing that Councilman Papalaskis said. I'd also going to be in support and would like to be added as a sponsor.
Councilmember Hopkins, you also? Council Vice President, you want to be on it? I think clean water is important. I think establishing this fund would be good for the future of our rivers and bays and all that stuff. I thought it was a great idea last year. I'm glad it came back up this year. With a motion and a second, no additional discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Resolution designating the City of Cranston as a PACE municipality and to approve the CPACE agreement, sponsored by Councilmember Stikos. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? A second. Under discussion, Councilmember Stikos.
Well, this is the big picture is this is a mechanism to encourage on their program. There are a couple of businesses that are interested in this, and they get incentives that are the part that I never can quite remember. So I wonder, could we have Michael Baer come up and explain this, how this works?
Yeah, sure. Just to clarify, this is for us to say the city of Cranston should participate in a state-funded program?
Well,
Solar?
in a program that's run by the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank.
Mr. Baer, if you want to come up and give us a quick rundown of this.
But live at 251 Norwood Ave in Cranston. CPACE is a financing vehicle that cities and towns have to opt into by statute. It's in state law that they have to opt into the program to allow their commercial businesses to access long-term fixed-rate non-recourse financing, not only for solar, but for energy efficiency, resiliency, so think like battery storage and backup, as well as water efficiency. And again, commercial, which includes houses of worship, nonprofits, and other items. The Infrastructure Bank manages the program. Why does the city or town have to opt in? It's because the financing is secured by a municipal benefit assessment, junior to taxes, senior to the mortgage. The Infrastructure Bank services all of that, so there's no additional effort or cost to the city. Actually, the Infrastructure Bank will pay all the filing fees and recordings fees for each of these assessments as well. The Infrastructure Bank has 20 participating municipalities around the state. It's an economic development opportunity, right? It allows these businesses to access 20-year fixed-rate financing at attractive terms compared to commercial mortgages. Also, it's 100% financing as well. So we've done projects as small as $80,000 to as big as $2.5 million.
Thank you, Mr. Baer. Any questions? Councilman McCauley.
There are two businesses in Cranston that have indicated interest, but they are not allowed to take advantage of this until the city opts in. Yes.
Councilmember Paplauskas.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you very much for being here this evening. I was looking under Section 3, the obligations of the municipality. So where it talks about liens and such, that goes on the property owner that would be using the infrastructure bank, so there's no cost to the city.
No cost to the city. The city will place the lien and assign the rights to the bank, and we'll assign it to the lender in the transaction. And then we bill and collect those assessments outside of the city's process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Stekos.
Yeah, could you just explain how this arrangement benefits the business and their line of credit?
Yeah. So because the financing is secured by municipal benefit assessment, banks, or if you're a manufacturer and you want to make improvements to kind of your facility, your energy components of your facility, reduce your energy costs, you can use CPACE to do that while keeping your existing credit lines open to make investments in revenue generating items. So because it's a municipal assessment, it's non-recourse. Some accountants consider it off balance sheet. That's what we're seeing across the nation. Again, this is a program in Rhode Island, but it's a nationwide option. And it's not the only option. So we've worked with 54 lenders or 54 businesses who we've brought energy efficiency or solar projects to, but they've used private commercial loans or other types of financing to finish those projects.
Yes, Councilman.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the administration has looked at this closely and supports it. I just want to confirm.
Yeah, I believe that was going to be Councilmember Paplauskas' question. Director Perillo.
Yes, we have met with Mike Baer, and we are in agreement that it would be beneficial to the city to have the PACE program in place.
Okay. Councilman Brady.
Upon approval of this resolution, which I seem to definitely be in favor of and would want to be added to a co-sponsor, if possible, if it pleases the sponsor, is there a marketing rollout plan? I know you have 20 other municipalities signed out. How would we collectively get it out there to the Cranston community to take advantage of these programs?
So in past, we've worked with the city and hold information sessions for local businesses, work with the local chamber of commerces. We're open to market. Really, the benefit we've seen is word of mouth and show in examples and case studies that we can bring to City of Cranston businesses.
Councilmember Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. Mr. Baird, what does the city have to do? Anything?
They have to pass a resolution and allow the administration to enter into the CPACE agreement,
Okay.
and then file the lien when we ask, financing agreement is done and file that.
Okay. And have any of these projects going forward since you've enacted this?
Not in Cranston, but we've done
other areas?
We've had, $11 million in loans and financings to 22 businesses across the state.
Okay. And how large are the projects for the most part?
So the smallest project we've done is around $80,000 at a nonprofit homeowner education facility where they've upgraded their HVAC. They had actually added heating and cooling to the third floor so they can make it usable space. We've done $2.5 million to a large prominent hotel in the city of Providence to do energy efficiency improvement, HVAC and lighting. We're also part of the broader Providence Public Library improvement as well.
Okay. So it's not just, there's not solar panel involvement in this?
There can be solar, but all projects have to meet local permitting and local zoning before they can move forward. CPACE doesn't supersede any of that. Everything follows the local rules.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Paplaskas.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I will be voting in favor of this tonight. I think it's another tool in the tool belt for businesses to make energy efficient improvements. And if it's okay with the sponsor, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor as well. Thank you.
Councilmember Hopkins.
Mr. President, just as an afterthought, if the city was looking to do a project that had solar lighting in particular, would they qualify for the same program?
If the city wanted to.
If the city wanted to light up Rolfe Street, for example, and use solar lights.
The Infrastructure Bank has another program called the Efficient Buildings Fund where we'll lend to cities in town at 20% below the Cranston's market rate of interest to do projects like that.
Councilmember McCauley. Might as well go for all 8 of us that are here, so I'd love to be added as a co-sponsor as well. Looks like everybody but Lamas. Why don't we put Lamas on for posterity? And tell her we did. With that, no other further discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember McCauley. Councilmember Donegan. Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Paplaskas.
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio. Council President Farino.
Yes. Next, we have a resolution encouraging Rhode Islanders to participate in the 2020 census and be counted. That is sponsored by Council President Farina. We received an email from Director Garcia asking we put this out. It's very important that everyone be counted in the census. I urge passage. I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Councilmember Donegan.
While we're on the topic of the census, I support the ordinance, the resolution. I also think that the city, as we start to think about the budget, we do need to think about allocating funds in our own municipal budget to ensure that everyone gets counted, particularly, sections of Ward 1, parts of Ward 2, but predominantly the northern section of Ward 3. They're all hard to count communities, and there's a lot at. I think we all know what's at stake, and there's a lot of fears about responding. So I think we need to allocate funds in our budget on the municipal side as well. So I support this, and I'd also support funding in Cranston's budget.
Thank you, Councilman Donegan. Councilman Brady.
Just budget season last year, don't we allocate money just to the experienced veterans of the council in the $90,000 that we looked over for the election? Is any of that?
I don't believe so.
The administration would be responsible for budgeting something like this into the budget, but definitely during budget sessions, if we feel it's something that we should add, definitely something we should review and figure out what we think we need. So, Councilman Donegan, I know this is something that you're very passionate about. I would ask that you develop a plan of what you think we need as a council and how we can be effective. That way we can look to fund it. It is something that I know we all believe in, so I think we should work to build a plan and fund it.
Just just one point of information too. It is a federal, I mean, it's governed by the federal government. So, there's only so much we can do.
I know, but assisting and getting people counted, it's like Councilmember Donegan said, a lot's at stake, making sure we have every person who lives in Cranston counted. We don't want to lose a representative up at the Fed, so I think there's a lot that needs to be said for the census. Councilman Donegan, if you could do that for us and get back to us with some kind of analysis.
Yeah, if you'd like, I'd be happy to try and, I know there's some tools out there. I can try and come up with the figure for next. I don't know if the March council meeting is too late, or perhaps the March finance meeting, if the clerk could put it on the docket, maybe we could have a broader conversation about what maybe that figure looks like with a little bit of leeway, head time going into the budget.
Excellent. Councilman Brady.
John, I just want to offer my assistance if you need it.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Anyone else? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll on the resolution.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio? Council President Farino?
Yes. Moving on to the Finance Committee.
So, President, the first issue that we heard in that committee was 9-19-01, Ordinance Amendment of Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, and Personnel.
Motion to approve.
I will
Motion to
entertain a
approve.
motion to approve. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a second. Under discussion, Council Vice President.
Thank you, Council President. Everyone knows the travel of this. It started out, we were looking at some of the part-time workers at the library, and a couple of things have happened in the meantime, one of which, I asked for legal opinions from both the Library Council and the City Council of the city. As you know, the attorney for the library said that we have no authority whatsoever there. And something just stuck in my mind that I didn't think that we had the right to do this. It's not, the money is of no consequence, especially now. The state just passed a minimum wage law of $11.50. So that's binding on every city in the state. But the other thing that happened on January 31 was the state Supreme Court came down with a decision in K&W Automotive versus the town of Barrington. And it kind of took care of two things, but it struck down their tobacco. They did a tobacco ordinance similar to what we were contemplating, and luckily, I don't think we passed that ordinance because the state Supreme Court said that the cities have no authority whatsoever to get themselves involved in a primarily state function. The state constitution doesn't permit certain things to be done by the municipalities. The same thing, I think, applies here. It was pretty clear. If it's something that the state primarily governs, then the cities and towns do not have authority to make laws that could contradict, could amend. And I think that, I know that I haven't had a chance to talk to Mr. Verdecchio, or to Mr. Kirschenbaum, but I think that they would agree after reading this case that it would be void the minute we pass it. This is something that's, municipalities don't pass minimum wage laws. Only the states do. And I think this is clearly something that I know we've never done, and I don't believe any other city has tried to do it. The state typically does it. And the risk in trying to test it could be substantial. And I don't know whether it's worth it because the amount of money we're talking about now has been diminished even further by that $11.50 minimum wage at the state level. So now what was $12,000 may only be $5,000 or $6,000. And as I've said all along, I think that the better way to do it would be in the budget process, talking to the directors of all the departments to see if they could increase some of the wages for some of our lowest paid part-timers. I mean, now we're probably talking about 30 people. And the gap has now been narrowed even further. So it seems to me that we absolutely have no responsibility or no authority to get involved in setting laws that pertain to the state in general.
So, Attorney Verdecchia, I'm going to let that marinate for a minute because Councilman Verdonigan has been having his hand up. I'll let him finish his thought while you marinate on that.
I appreciate Councilman Favicchio's comments. And the operative word, if we were a private is very that we minimum wage on Burger or on whoever. But regarding this and conversations I've had with Department of Labor and Training, we're setting wages for our own business, our own entity. That's not contrary or prohibited by state law. Again, I'm not an attorney, but I'm pretty confident on this. We're setting the wages for our own employees. We're not imposing that on any private business.
Attorney Verdecchia, you want to give the opinion if you have one?
I haven't had the chance to review this appeal. It was just handed to me. I could look into it. Just a couple of observations, though. To Councilman Favicchio's point, normally, and I've repeated this on many occasions, when the state of Rhode Island preempts a given field, whether it be tobacco, alcohol, whatever, the towns and cities cannot enact anything in contravention or that contradicts state law unless the state specifically grants what we call enabling legislation to the cities and towns. This particular Supreme Court case, the town of Barrington case, I think I remember when this was in the Superior Court regarding tobacco. Now, there's no question that with tobacco, the state has occupied that field, so that's fairly easy. As far as drawing an analogy between tobacco and what we're talking about here, minimum wage, Councilman Favicchio makes a point that perhaps that the city is overstepping its authority by attempting to contradict what the state says. However, Councilman Donegan makes a good point too, because I think the distinction between the tobacco situation and this, there's no question that the state has mandated a minimum wage threshold, but I'm not so sure that that means that a city or town cannot exceed that if it feels fit. And the reason I say that is because the minimum wage at the state level is a threshold. If the city were to say, we're going to make our minimum wage $9 an hour, well, clearly that would be a problem because the state has mandated it has to be, I guess, as of a recent date, $11.50 an hour. I'm not so sure that that is a prohibition, though, on the city exceeding the minimum that's required. You can't go below the minimum, but you may be able to go above that minimum. One moment, please. And as I said, the analogy between tobacco and this situation, there's somewhat of an analogy, but, you know, tobacco affects interstate commerce, as does alcohol, whereas this is purely a local issue. And as Councilman Donegan did point out, it would be a much different matter if this council was attempting to say, okay, all businesses in the city of Cranston have to pay $12 an hour. That would clearly be ultra vires. That would clearly be in contravention of state statute. But because it's limited to the city and because it doesn't go below the threshold and is above it, I'm not 100% certain. I'd have to look into it a little bit more if you wanted me to, but I think it might pass muster. But I'm not certain about that. I'd have to look into it a little bit more.
Thank you, Attorney Verdecchia. Councilor Donegan.
Thank you, Attorney. Yeah, I think Steve and I introduced this at the September council meeting. We're in the end of February. I think it's been discussed enough. I think we should pass this tonight.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Stichels.
Yeah, I think a few years ago, it was permissible for a municipality to set a minimum wage, and there was a dispute for everything in the municipality, and there was a labor dispute in Providence to do with the hotel workers, and the legislature passed legislation that taking that power away from the municipality. So Mike would be absolutely right if he was talking about a citywide, all employees minimum wage. But to accept that logic that we can't do it for our own employees would mean that the city council that controls the purse in the city does not have the power to set wages for its own employees. And I think that's just ridiculous. I mean, we obviously do have the power to do that, and we should pass this, and we know that 1275 is not as high as it should be, but it's a step in the right direction. So I would urge you to think about the people who are at the ice rink, at the senior center, working in the recreation department, who are making less than $12.75 an hour. Some are at $10.50 to go to $11.50, and we need to remember them, and that they're working for the city and they're doing good work, and we need to pay them at least $12.75.
Councilmember Brady.
Thank you, Chair, or Council President. I think all points brought up were good points. To John's point, this was brought up in September. I'm not a big fan of continue things, but I also understand Councilman Favicchio's points regarding the legality of it. That being said, I did want to ask a follow-up question to the administration. I know that when we asked in committee, the monetary change, and I did express in committee that I did think this should be discussed during budget season. However, I agree with the intent of the ordinance. I just wanted to see the fiscal impact again now that we've changed the state law to 1150. Is it still in the same range? Has anything changed in that regard?
Director Perillo.
You're speaking about the new 1150 state minimum with the changes now? I don't have that number.
Well, would that change affect anything in this ordinance regarding any other employees that we'd have to look at beyond just that level?
I don't have that exact number for you. Sorry.
I will say anecdotally, since the state is increasing their minimum wage, it would actually probably lower the burden and the financial impact because the state has mandated.
I did ask Bob Strom that a similar question, which was when the library employees were taken out of the figuring, because I think it was $66,000 a year when the library employees were in, what would it be without the library employees? And the answer was around $22,000 a year. But since this doesn't go in until January, the cost, it would be $11,000 in the first year and then $22,000 in the second year, not taking into account the dollar increase in the state minimum wage. So it would be less than, for the first year, it would be less than $11,000. And
Brady.
Well, I think just as a follow-up, I think that's a minimal fiscal impact for defending those that aren't paid a lot. My only concern is obviously going up to $12.50 to those workers. We then would have to look at other workers to go up to $13.50, $14.50 who've been with us a long time. That all being said, I do agree with the intent of this ordinance, and I will likely be supporting it. And like Councilman Donegan said, I want to see a decision made either way, seeing that we started talking about it in September.
Any further discussion? Council Vice President.
Sorry, just a brief follow-up. Yeah, I just want to note, no one's ever come to speak about this. It's, we never had any library workers come in. No one's come in. It's just a question of, I don't think we need to do it, everything by ordinance. The amount of money now is probably $5,000 in 6 months because anyone making $10.50 is now making $11.50 and getting a raise. So now the gap is narrowed even further. I just think we don't need to pass laws to do certain things. We can do it during the budget season. I'm not sure that we have the authority. I'm going to vote against it. My legal opinion on this.
Any additional comments? Council Majority Leader Paploskas.
Thank you, Council President. I'll be voting for this tonight. I voted for it in committee. It's a small portion of workers that work very hard. In the grand scheme of things, with the minimum wage going up, it is a small amount of money. Now we've talked about this over the last couple of years, and like Councilmember Brady said, I'm not in favor like him to keep continuing stuff. So with it being such a money, I don't think we need to wait till we get to the budget. So I'll be supporting it tonight.
Any additional comments? I've abstained on this throughout the process only because at the time it included library workers. Since it no longer includes library workers, not the class that's not included, I can vote on this, and I have no issue supporting a $12.50 wage for people working in the city. It's a very minuscule number of people when you look at the grand scheme of things, but if we can pass something that helps people, I'm all for it. It only costs the city about $5,000, and basically we established a new baseline, so I have no issue with it. Council Member Hopkins.
Thank you, President. Councilman Favicchio made a point. There's probably already $6,000 already allotted for this, and if it's only going to go up to $11,000, we're talking about $5,000. Am I correct in that assumption?
We don't know. We haven't received an updated financial, but you could assume $5,000 to $7,000 in that range. Probably feels right.
Okay, thank you.
With that, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Yes. Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio? No. Council President Farina?
Yes. Moving on, resolution authorizing real estate tax abatements, approved unanimously in committee. I have a motion. To have a second?
Second.
Under discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Yes. Councilmember Hopkins? Yes. Councilmember McCauley? Yes. Councilmember Donegan? Yes. Councilmember Brady? Yes. Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio? Yes. Council President Farina?
Yes. On resolution authorizing motor vehicle.
Do you want me to continue, or do you want to?
I was just going to do the resolutions.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
On resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements, I have motion approved. Do I have a second? Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Yes. Councilmember Hopkins? Yes. Councilmember McCauley? Yes. Councilmember Donegan? Yes. Councilmember Brady? Yes. Councilmember Paplaskas? Yes. Council Vice President Ficchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes. You want to continue, Council Vice President? I'm sorry, I stole your time.
No, that's okay. Resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion and a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes.
Next, we had resolution authorizing tangible tax abatements, passed unanimously.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley?
Yes.
Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes.
And last, we had the tax interest waiver approvals.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion. To have a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopkins?
Yes.
Councilmember McCauley? Yes. Councilmember Donegan? Yes. Councilmember Brady? Yes. Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes. Claims Committee, all the claims that were settled out last month are here for your perusal. And then moving on to Ordinance Committee.
First, we had 1-20-01, ordinance and amendment of Chapter 8.20, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Noise Control, Noise Measurement, sponsored by Councilmember Stikos.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Under discussion, Councilmember Stikos.
Yep, this is a simple ordinance that allows the chief of police, the building inspector, or a professional company designated by them to measure noise for the purpose of enforcing the noise ordinance. It currently only the building inspector can do that. So this widens our ability to enforce the noise ordinance.
Excellent. I believe this passed unanimously in committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stikos? Yes. Councilmember Hopkins? Yes. Councilmember McCauley? Yes. Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Next, we had 1-20-03, ordinance and amendment of Section 17.24, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Zoning, Performance Standards, Generally Medical Marijuana Dispensaries, sponsored by the mayor. This passed in committee.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Under discussion, Councilmember Favecchio.
Thank you, Council President. Just a quick question to Mr. Pizzullo, if I may.
Director Pizzullo.
Director, all of the distances that we used in the standards, do those mirror the state? Somebody asked me this question. Do they mirror the state thing, especially with regard to schools?
Yes.
Okay, so that's basically how you.
So that's where we came up with that number.
That 1,000 feet.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll have to be careful about that because when we look at religious institutions, many of them are schools. So, they second as schools. So,
do you think that that's too expansive, or that we have no authority?
No, I think that the buffers that we have and the areas that we've laid out are about as as restrictive as we need them to be in those industrial areas.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Hopkins, I see your hand.
Thank you, President. Mr. Pizzullo, in committee I asked about a definition of schools and educational institutions, and I was looking for a broader interpretation of that rather than just public schools, private schools. Does it include hairdressing schools?
No.
Does it include mechanical schools?
I believe not. I don't believe that professional schools like that. No, this is about children, as far as I understood when we were doing the buffers, but not like from a Paul Mitchell School of Hair needs a 1,000-foot buffer or something like that. I don't believe so.
Well, educational facilities might include trade schools or
I don't
technical
Councilmember
schools.
Hopkins.
That's why I'm asking for.
As a point of information, I did read the code after last week's meeting, and educational institutions is limited to secondary and elementary schools, no higher ed, no advanced certification schools, so hairdressing, labor academies would not be included. The Industrial Labor Academy, and this is where the code gets a little not clear, because the Laborers Academy is a high school. I think that one's covered. I am not sure, but nothing post-secondary is included. So no higher ed, no any kind of school, any kind of trade schools post-secondary.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just looking for a clearer definition of what fell into that category. That's all.
Yeah, if you ever really have a hankering, if you go to MuniCode, you can actually Google or just search and read all the zoning codes and the definitions. There's a lot of them. Councilmember Paplaskas, I see your hand.
Thank you, Council President. First of all, I just want to say that I'm happy with the setbacks at 1,000 feet and the 500 feet. I know in the first ordinance that came in front of us last year, a lot of that was missing. It is 400 feet from a resident, so for that reason, I'm going to vote no tonight. I think it should be 500 feet to match the rest of it. I know this matches the other law with the cultivators, the 400 feet, so I get that part of it, but I just think parking is going to be an issue, being 400 feet from a resident, so I'll be voting no.
Any additional comments? Council Vice President Favicchio.
Just one other quick thing. I just want to thank Director Pizzullo and his staff for all the work they've done. They've worked on so many large projects in the last few months, and this was one of them. So they've spent a lot of time and come up with some very good ordinances.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, I do agree that I think this could use some tweaks, but it's been on and off the docket for so many months, and I know Councilmember Donegan earlier tonight echoed things kind of lingering for a long time. This has been on and off the docket for, I think, a year, so I'd like to see some kind of regulation put on our books than none. So I do agree, though, with Councilmember Papalauskas. We could look at changing this or amending it. I think Councilmember Hopkins brings up a good point. Should it include trade schools? Should it include secondary, post-secondary education? Should we make the bandwidth bigger? So I think those are amendments we should consider in the next few months, but to get something on the books, I think it makes sense. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Yes. Councilmember Hopkins? Yes. Councilmember McCauley? Yes. Councilmember Donegan?
Yes.
Councilmember Brady?
Yes.
Councilmember Papalauskas?
No.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Passes. Next, we had 1-20-06, ordinance and amendment of Chapter 17.24, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Zoning, Solar Energy Systems Rooftop, sponsored by the mayor. This was approved, I believe, in committee.
I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have a motion approved. I have a second. I have a second under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Papalauskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes.
And lastly, we had 1-20-07, ordinance amendment of Chapter 17, Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Zoning Schedule of Uses. This is the companion to the marijuana ordinance that we just passed.
Entertain a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Papalauskas?
No.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes, as a point of information, I believe this was for rooftop solar, not marijuana. So I think Council Member Favicchio might have misspoke that. That was the companion for rooftop solar. Just so you know, Council Member. I think Council Member Papalauskas made that vote in error. For the record,
Motion to reconsider.
I have motion to reconsider in a second. Under discussion. Actually, yeah, Councilmember Stichels, can you make the motion to reconsider?
I'll make the motion to reconsider.
Thank you. I have motion to reconsider, and I have a second from the winning side. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Papalauskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio? Council President Farina?
Yes, on the motion to reconsider, Councilmember Papalauskas' vote doesn't count. I'll entertain a motion to approve. I have motion approved. Do I have a second? Under discussion. Again, this is on the companion for the solar legislation. I'll entertain. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Papalauskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farina?
Yes, I didn't ever want anyone to say that you were against rooftop solar, Councilmember.
You know, it's funny. It's been all term. We haven't had a motion to reconsider. We finally got one.
I mean, I could have let it fly, but all I could see is someone in the next few months being, that guy does not like solar. So
I like solar.
I know you do. Moving on to Public Works. Councilmember Hopkins, you have the floor.
We have 1-20-02, an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 12 of the Title 12 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Streets and Sidewalks Use Regulations, Obstruction of Public Ways, sponsored by Councilman Donegan.
I will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. I have a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes.
And we have a resolution encouraging the administration of the City Council grant writer to work on funding for a splash pad at the Khaleesi Field Annex, parcel 8-2745-0 on Dyer Avenue, sponsored by Councilman Donegan, co-sponsored by Councilman members Paplaskas and McCauley.
I believe a lot of us asked to be added as co-sponsors. I believe it was all 9 of us, but
Yes, I would also like to be added to that.
so at least 8 of us, because Councilwoman Vargas isn't here. I don't want to overstep my authority as council president. With that, and everybody sponsoring it last time, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. Councilmember Donegan, you want to say anything about your splash pad?
I think it'll be a great addition, and I appreciate everyone's support.
I agree with you. Councilmember Brady.
I just want to bring back up that, because I brought it up in committee, and I've thought about it since. I just really appreciate the children that took the time to write us letters. They really hit home, and I appreciate the resolution, and just wanted to mention that publicly.
Yeah, I said this in the committee meeting. I'll say it again tonight. The city is really about transportation and access. It's tough for people to drive places, and having things in neighborhoods makes a whole lot of sense. This solves 2 of those problems with transportation and access. I know there was some concern at the committee meeting about kids from Providence using it. And listen, I look at it, if we have enough kids using it that we need another splash pad, we'll build another splash pad. With that, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio? Council President Farino?
Yes. Public hearings. This section of the meeting is open to anyone to talk about any topic they like. Would anyone like to speak on anything before the City Council tonight? Seeing none, that section of the meeting is now closed. Election of city officials. We have a request to have Dr. Taino Palermo fill the term of Julie Colangelo, who is removing herself from the Library Board of Trustees. Dr. Taino Palermo is an excellent advocate for a lot of people in our city, big supporter of education. I think he'd be excellent for the Library Board, and was happy to see Director Garcia recommend him for this appointment. I urge passage. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas? Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes. Juvenile Hearing Board, Nancy Riley, appointment to alternate 1, term to expire 12/1/2020, sponsored by Councilmember Stichels. Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. I have a second. Under discussion, Council Member Stichels.
Just want to let people know Nancy Riley is a retired member, a retired guidance officer at Cranston East, or guidance counselor at Cranston East. And prior to that, she was a librarian. But I think she'll be a really good addition because of her ties to the other teachers and administrators at Cranston East and her knowledge of guidance.
Thank you, Councilmember Hopkins.
Thank you, President. I also agree with Councilmember Stichels. I worked with Nancy for many years at Cranston East. Her personality and her professionalism as a teacher was beyond reproach, and I would also like to support this as well.
Okay. Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Favicchio?
Yes.
Council President Farino?
Yes. On the Zoning Board of Review, we have a reappointment for Josh Catone to his alternate number 2. Actually, we got a good solid email from the former zoning member, Rob Coop, saying that he recommended this reappointment, so I just wanted to set that out there. That means Josh is doing some good stuff on the Zoning Board. I have a motion approved. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Under discussion. Seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Yes. Councilmember Hopkins? Yes. Councilmember McCauley? Yes. Councilmember Donegan?
No.
Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas? Council President Vecchio? Council President Farina?
Yes. Maybe I'll ask John later. To all those watching at home, that was a little inside humor. Report of city officers. There are none. Executive communications. We all have the report on hiring special legal personnel. If anyone has any questions on that, now would be the appropriate time. No problem, Councilmember. This is the time for those.
This is a collection of bills from July 1, 19 to present, so that incorporates all of the legal bills, and obviously she was part of some of those bills. January 4th was her last day in service, so I'm assuming that would be the last new citing in this report. You're welcome.
Councilmember Donegan.
Regarding the traffic safety litigation, I see that 212, there's a payment of just under $10,400, and on the 10th of January, just shy of $13,000. That's almost $25,000.
Yes, that's
how much more do we anticipate that costing the city?
how much more I can't tell you. All I can say is that it looks like that is going to be going to trial soon, and obviously that usually those costs usually get heightened during a trial, but I can't specify how much money that's going to be.
Does the administration have any plan to put forward any budgetary proposals to deal with root causes of homelessness, whether it be housing or transportation or economics?
Do we have any budgetary proposals on homelessness?
Do you think that we're spending a lot of money on sweeping homelessness under the rug. Do you think that the city is going to put any, whether it's a housing affordability fund, or actually, instead of sweeping homelessness under the rug, are we going to work? The point I'm making is that this money could be going to actually addressing homelessness, the money that we're spending on this case. That'd be money better spent for the city.
This lawsuit is defending an ordinance that the city has in place that was passed by the councils, being supported by the mayor. It was challenged. That is the purpose of the lawsuit. Anything we do separate and apart for homelessness or affordable housing would be totally separate from what this lawsuit is going to hopefully address finally after trial.
Councilmember Stichels.
Yes, could you tell us what the status of investigation is? I believe that's to do with the claims of sexual harassment.
It's an ongoing investigation. The independent investigator we hired to handle that is still conducting that investigation.
I'm sorry, the investigator that you hired, say that again?
The investigator that we hired is still conducting that investigation. So that's the update I have right now.
Do we have an estimate of when it would be finished?
We're hoping for this month.
And I noticed that there are, I remember when the city announced that Mark DeSisto was going to be hired to do that investigation, but now I see that Nixon Peabody is also being paid for that. Could you explain what's happening there?
Nixon Peabody is a law firm the city has retained regarding that. Mr. DeSisto is conducting the actual investigation.
So Nixon Peabody is doing what?
They are the law firm representing the city in this matter.
Is there a legal complaint? I mean, a case filed?
I really don't want to get into the details of that right now in open session. We can discuss it in executive session, Councilman. But we have retained them to assist us with this particular situation.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Stichels, as a follow-up, I did ask Director Perillo a couple months ago if he would be open to an executive session once the investigation was final, and the administration seemed willing, so that is still something we want to have as a group to understand what happened, but we would need the investigation complete before we do it. Okay, moving on. I believe we have the retirement of Detective Ryan.
Yes, Mr. President, the mayor would like the approval to place Detective John Ryan on the pension rolls for the city of Cranston. Detective Ryan has served the city for over 31 years and will be retiring at the end of March. So we'd like to have him added to the pension roll.
I'm assuming he met all the necessary qualifications.
He has.
I have a motion to approve the retirement of Detective Ryan. I have a second. Under discussion, Councilmember Hopkins.
Thank you, President. Yeah, I've known
Thank you, Councilmember Hopkins. I know we all share your sentiments. Detective Ryan is a great advocate and a good police officer. With that, I have a motion to approve in a second. I have no further discussion. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Ficchio? Council President Farina?
Yeah, so thank you, Council President. I had the opportunity about a few weeks back. I met with some students at Eden Park School. I'm sorry, not Eden Park. One of the elementary schools. It's escaping me. I apologize. And we were talking about the plastic bag ban that we passed about a year ago, and they really wanted to get involved in the process and how can they help make a difference. And one thing that we thought about was designing reusable bags that would help then kind of get the word out and get the public and the city as a whole engaged as we move forward towards the July 1st deadline. And so what I was thinking, and if it's a terrible idea, I trust you will all say it, but that perhaps, we could engage with the schools and get some of the kids to design or to put forward a design for a reusable bag that we could then make available in the library, at City Hall, to the schools. I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, there might be some money in the orders of the council line item that I think we put $37,000 in there last year, and I don't believe any of it has been expended yet. So yeah. But if we could put, a few thousand of that towards maybe some bags, I think it would go a long way to engaging the community in this process, some public education, and really, build community.
Yeah, so Councilmember Donegan, I'm going to ask you to go to work again. So I think this is a noble idea. I think if you look up how much the bags would cost. I think the design is the easy part, figuring out how much the cost is, and then we could see if we can allocate some funds to order the councils to buy bags to have at the libraries in different locations. I think it's a good idea. I just want to make sure we're not overextending the little line item we have. I mean, if we're talking, I think 32,000 of that funding is going to schools to help offset some costs of year-end field trips that we put in the budget at the end of last year. I have no issue, though, with allocating the rest, because we did have some funds that we put in for the sounds, for the systems. We did put some money in for the TV that we're not going to buy, so there could be some money in there. I think if we get an impact, it'd be a noble cause that we can really try to drive some engagement with the youth of our city. Maybe we could make a competition out of it and, do something for the winning student. Anyone else? Councilmember Hopkins.
Just an update, the administration on the replacement of the slides that were vandalized at the parks. I know Director Liberatore was following up on that, but I've received calls from the neighbors asking if and when anything's been done on it.
I don't have a definitive time frame for Mr. Liberatore. I can get back to you tomorrow when I speak to him about it.
Could you just ask him so I can give them an answer?
Sure.
Yeah.
If I could interject,
Okay. And also, Director, we've had an increase in graffiti in Rolfe Square. I know it's been reported to the police department. My question is, how long does it stay up, and how quickly can we get rid of it so that it just doesn't accumulate?
I'm not intimately familiar with the ordinance, but I do believe it is on the property owner to take care of that. I'm not sure what the exact time frame is, but again, I can look into that and find out for you.
It has been up for maybe going on a week or two now. It's been reported, and it's once it hits once, it's going to continue, and that area seems to be a target lately. We saw it on the church. We've seen it on, I saw it on Bertolo's restaurant, now on Ruth's Lingerie. So it's moving around that area. So if we could maybe increase some patrols on it with public safety, but also get the business owners to get rid of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor McCauley. Thank you for the update, Councilmember McCauley. Councilmember Paplowskis.
Two things for Director Perillo. One, pass along a thank you. There was a tree down in the windstorm in the playground on Cranston Street, and Parks and Rec got to it quickly for the residents. And then I was speaking to some residents today in the Woodridge neighborhood, and they requested some more wood chips for the Woodridge school playground. So if you can pass it on to Director Liberatore, I would appreciate it.
I will.
Thank you.
Councilmember McCauley.
Thank you, Councilman. They are clients of mine that are doing the work, and so it's not that I'm not doing it all for nothing, but I did take pride in it because of where it was located, and it was. I don't know if I've ever seen anything where 7 dumpsters full to clean it out in a small house. I don't know how you could even walk in the place. It was atrocious, but. A lot of work went into it, and they're just, it's brand new now. It's beautiful. So I'd love to do more of those, and I'd love to see them do more in the city. So
Thank you, council member. If there's no other comments, I'm going to move on to old business. There is no old business this evening. Introduction of new business. I will send a motion to send all the new business to committee in a block without being read. I have a motion and a second. Under discussion, seeing none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Stichels? Councilmember Hopkins? Councilmember McCauley? Councilmember Donegan? Councilmember Brady? Councilmember Paplaskas?
Yes.
Council Vice President Vecchio?
yes.
Council President Freeman?
Yes, if there's no additional business come before the city council tonight, which doesn't look like there is, the city's council's next regular monthly meeting will be held on March 23rd, 2020. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. A motion second, all in favor to adjourn? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.